by Calvo's Insurance, a legacy of trust, serving Micronesia since 1938. Matson and the Adahi Itano program. Cars Plus kick off our holidays by supporting the Make-A-Wish Jingle Rock Virtual Run. Visit the Make-A-Wish Foundation of Guam and CNMI Facebook page for details. McDonald's of Guam, I'm loving it, and King's Restaurant, always open, always local, and serving up favorites for over 40 years.
Coming up on Prime Time, the inauguration of the 36th Guam legislature was held this morning and new leadership was announced. Plus, the village mayors were also sworn in this afternoon in the heart of Hagatnya. And a fight that's been occurring much longer than COVID-19 is Guam's war on drugs.
Hafna, good evening. I'm Adriana Cotero. New year, new legislature. The Guam legislature held their inauguration ceremony today, and after a year like 2020, all eyes will be watching to see how the 36th Guam legislature plans to bring us out of the pandemic and onto the road to recovery. Peter Santos reports. Right after the inauguration, the first bills were introduced, all to lower taxes as promised by Republican members Jim Moylan, Tony Ada, Chris Duenas, and Frank Blas Jr. One measure would reduce the business privilege tax from 5% to 4%. Another would place a 2-year suspension on the tax increase for high-value property worth $1 million or more, except for residential homes. And a third would raise the gross threshold on limited BPT exemptions from $250,000 to $500,000. The GOP lawmakers say it's the first in a series of initiatives they're calling Let's Get Guam Moving, focused on prioritizing economic recovery. And we have that first story for you now.
As we welcome in the new year, we welcome a new legislative body. Members of the 36th Guam legislature were officially sworn in today, and with the new legislative body comes a new speaker. After serving as vice speaker back in 2016, unanimously elected Speaker Therese Terlahi finally gets her turn to lead the legislature.
I'm feeling very grateful, and I think we need to communicate very well. That's a challenge, right, that we are going to have to overcome. I think we can't have personalities dividing us, and we can focus on issues. So communication is one of my priorities. I think more deliberations. I welcome all ideas, suggestions, and input. I think that's the way to go forward.
Speaker Terlahi says that the people deserve a truly transparent and open government.
Openness, that's the other key. It's like we will never create good policy. We can't be completely open about what the facts are underlying that policy or what the situation really is. So the more openness, the better. And that's going to take all three branches of government to work together in that.
According to former Speaker and newly elected Vice Speaker Tina Munya Barnes, it's time to clock in.
A lot of more work. As we continue to recover, as we continue to bring our community back to a sustainable business community so that we can be all on our feet, I think it is important that we continue to work together. We have to get back on our feet, and by doing so, we have to work extra hard. And that's what I'm going to do. Roll up my sleeve and continue, not stop working. We got to work.
Making her way back to the legislative floor, Senator Joanne Brown says accountability will be a focal point for her.
I ran on an anti-corruption platform, and that's certainly something I will focus on in this legislature, as well as ensuring that while we talk about transparency and accountability in the government, that's not a normal practice. And that's something certainly I will be pursuing legislatively to ensure that our government is more transparent to our people and accountable to our people. You know, you see a lot of people that are you know, they don't have a lot of confidence in government. They're almost discouraged because it's like, oh, you could change the names and the people that are in office, and that, you know, they seem to see these same old practices. And I think the time's come. I think our people want that change.
Newly elected GOP Minority Leader Senator James Moylan says he's focused on boosting the economy.
It's the small businesses that need to survive, and it's been quite tough for this about a year now, and the future, what the federal government is providing us is helpful, but it's not the only answers. We need to look at a lot of measures to help boost the economy going, and that's by removing fees, reducing taxes, and building jobs. We're not waiting, we're getting busy right from day one.
Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Peter Santos.
They are the heart, soul, and voice of our villages. Today, our island's mayors and vice mayors were sworn in at the Guam Museum for the 17th mayoral and vice mayoral inauguration. Tyler Matanani has the story.
Village mayors and vice mayors were sworn in this afternoon during a ceremony outside of the Guam Museum in the island's capital of Hagåtña. Mayors and vice mayors serve a 4-year term. This marked the 17th Mayor Council of Guam inauguration. MC of the event, Mayor's Council of Guam Executive Director Angel Sablan said it is simple, humble, limited, but historic. Angel Sablan remarked that today 26 individuals take their oath of office. Each come from an eclectic background, and that in their diversity, they bring together one commonality, a strong desire to serve the people of Guam. Governor Lou Leon Guerrero gave opening remarks congratulating the mayors and vice mayors, saying, quote, "This is a tremendous honor, and it certainly isn't one that any elected officials take lightly. This past election, in fact, this whole year, was especially difficult for all of us. But in a remarkable demonstration of the power of democracy, our people came out and voted, and their voices were heard," unquote.
Many of you grew up in the communities you serve. You know your neighbors, their stories, and their struggles. You celebrated with them, and you cried with them in times of sadness and tragedy. As village leaders, you are one of their biggest advocates.
Governor Leon Guerrero continued saying that each mayor and vice mayor represent the heart and soul of their constituents and villages, and that much of our success during this pandemic has been because of the partnership with village leadership, adding our recovery is dependent on working together. Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Tyler Matanani.
Members of the 117th Congress were sworn in today amid the pandemic and political division. On Wednesday, lawmakers will count the votes of the Electoral College and ratify President-elect Joe Biden's victory. But a group of senators plans to object to the results, citing President Trump's unsubstantiated claims of widespread voter fraud. CBS News White House correspondent Ben Tracy has the latest.
I do.
Elbow bumps instead of handshakes were the new norm as Vice President Mike Pence swore in senators on the first day of the new congressional session.
To say the 117th Congress convenes at a challenging time would indeed be an understatement. From political division to a deadly pandemic to adversaries around the world, the hurdles before us are many, and they are serious. But there's also plenty of reason for hope.
The majority leader's message comes as a group of at least a dozen GOP senators, led by Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, plan to object when Congress ratifies President-elect Joe Biden's 306 electoral votes on Wednesday. But most Republicans are not on board with trying to overturn the election results on President Trump's behalf.
This is bad for the country and bad for the party.
On Sunday, a bipartisan group of 10 senators released a statement saying the voters have spoken and Congress must now fulfill its responsibility to certify the election results. In audio of a phone call obtained by CBS News, President Trump is heard pressuring Georgia's Republican Secretary of State Saturday to recalculate results of the state's election, which Biden won.
And there's nothing wrong with saying that, that you've recalculated.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Vice President Pence has also signaled that he supports the attempt by Trump allies to overturn the election results, despite judges across the country and the Supreme Court rejecting dozens of challenges. Ben Tracy, CBS News, the White House.
Today, our leaders for the 10th Guam Education Board swore in virtually. Presiding Judge Alberto Lamarena administered the oath of office for 6 elected board members. They are Peter Alexis Ada, Lou Benaventi, Robert Cristostomo, Maria Gutierrez, Mark Mangiola, and Dr. Mary Okada. In addition, 11 students were also sworn in for the Island Board of Governing Students for school year 2020 to 2021. These students were elected or appointed by their schools to represent them on the Guam Education Board. GB Chairwoman Maria Gutierrez gave her remarks.
As members of the Guam Education Board, elected or appointed, we shall continue to advocate and be committed to strongly support our students in the public school system our employees, our stakeholders, because this is why we're on this board.
The GEB and IBOG will work collectively with GDOE Superintendent John Fernandez as they gear up for the reopening of schools this month. Coronavirus vaccinations began today for designated military personnel in Guam. Joint Region Marianas announced that the U.S. Naval Hospital has received its first shipment of COVID-19 vaccines. The initial batch contained a limited quantity of doses which will only be administered to Phase 1A personnel, which include healthcare providers and support staff, emergency services, and public safety personnel. JRMC says it expects to receive more shipments in the coming weeks, which will be administered to eligible DoD-affiliated individuals as production and distribution increases. For updates on the vaccinations, military beneficiaries can follow the JRMC Naval Hospital and Anderson Air Force Base Facebook sites. Department of Public Health is kicking off the new year with a 2-day drive-through community testing. The rapid tests were conducted this morning from 9 a.m. to noon at the Guam Community College's library parking lot and continued to tomorrow, January 5th. There are 300 COVID tests available for both days. However, today's operation resulted in a rather slow turnout. DPHSS Public Information Officer Janela Carrera suggests it's because of Guam's low positivity rate, start of the new year, and the arrival of COVID-19 vaccines.
Where we're at with our CAR score, with our hospitalizations. So even though our positive cases are down, it doesn't mean that we let our guard down. So it's important to get tested out there, especially if you're feeling symptoms. And even if you do get vaccinated, it doesn't mean that you have to stop with the preventative measures like wearing your mask, social distancing, and washing your hands.
The testing is free and is not invasive. According to Carrera, DPHSS is administering the shallow nose test and results are ready on site within 15 minutes. In partnership with GCC, DPHSS has dedicated the first hour from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on both days for students and faculty testing. In addition to community testing, public health remains busy this week with vaccinations. The second dose for the Phase 1A or healthcare worker professionals COVID-19 vaccine is scheduled to begin on Thursday, January 7th through Saturday, January 9th. A location and time has not been determined. However, according to DPHSS Public Information Officer Janela Carrera, this topic, amongst others, is slated for discussions at this evening's Vaccine and Antiviral Prioritization Policy meeting.
Plans that we need to start working on, for example, the homebound elderly population. We need to discuss that when they'll be inoculated, and then we also have the rest of the Phase 1B category, like the frontline essential workers. That's another discussion for the rest of the Phase 1B
Can we expect those vaccinations for the remaining of Phase 1B to occur within the coming weeks?
Actually, probably much sooner, especially now that we have the rest of the Moderna vaccines that have arrived.
Carrera says public health nurses are currently undergoing training to administer the Moderna vaccine. The VAPPC will then determine how to allocate the December allotment of the Moderna and remaining Pfizer vaccine in order to complete Phase 1B vaccinations. Ensuring his officers get to the front of the line for the COVID-19 vaccine. Guam Police Department Chief Stephen Ignacio called in Public Health Director Art San Augustine. The call was answered last week. As Chief Ignacio and GPD personnel were vaccinated at Ukadu High School on New Year's Eve. Ignacio was unable to provide a count on how many staff received the vaccine.
As the Chief of Police, I've always wanted to make sure that my officers also get to the front of that line because we have over the past dealt with a lot of COVID positive cases. And you know, when you're dealing with a known positive case, you know, it's easier to protect yourself. But with the Guam Police Department, we deal with a lot of unknown positive cases. We're running to the scene, we're responding to, these cases. And, lo and behold, we find out when they get to the hospital that they're COVID positive. And that's happened maybe about 3, 4, 5 times already that I've been aware of.
Chief Ignacio expresses gratitude to Director San Augustine and the VAPPC for swiftly moving them up the list. He says his second dose of the vaccine is scheduled for January 21st. This afternoon, the Joint Information Center reported that 17 out of 501 test samples came back positive for COVID-19. Of the new cases, 6 reported recent travel history and were identified in quarantine. To date, there have been a total of 7,344 officially reported cases of COVID-19, with 123 deaths, 132 in active isolation, and 7,089 have recovered. The CAR score is currently 0.9. After several months of fluctuating COVID hospitalization numbers, we've finally gotten it down to a single-digit census. As Hospital Administrator Lillian Posadas confirms, there are currently 8 COVID patients hospitalized. According to Posadas, of the 8, there are 2 patients who continue to require an ICU level of care, with both those patients requiring ventilator support. While COVID hospitalizations have gone down to single digits, it is absolutely imperative that we continue this downward trend. You can do your part by continuing to practice the 3 W's. Wash your hands, watch your distance, and wear your mask. Stick around for more news here on Prime Time. Coming up, Governor Leon Guerrero appoints some new members to the cabinet. Stay tuned. You're watching KUAM.
Get up-to-the-minute news, plus access to alerts, streaming radio, promotions, and more on your mobile device by downloading the KUAM News mobile app, available at the App Store now.
It makes myself and it makes my team members very proud to work for an organization that has been on island for many years with its focus on reliability, dependability, and commitment to the communities that they operate in.
Matson's a great corporate citizen to the community.
We all benefit from any sort of environmental commitment we make. One of the ways that we do that is with our Adahi Utano program. There's action behind it, and so action breeds commitment.
With the Kaimana Gila coming to Guam, this brings a new age and modernization to the island.
It's exciting for me because it's a brand new ship and we can carry more freight into the islands. It just shows growth for Guam and Micronesia.
Matson would be nothing without its customers, and we hope to continue to serve you for decades to come.
While we've all been through a lot over the years,
typhoons, earthquakes, and now COVID-19,
we've been able to get through these together.
For more than 80 years.
Travelers Insurance has been protecting your homes, your businesses,
and the health of your family.
We are here today and we'll be here tomorrow.
There are better days ahead. Tomorrow's a new day filled with hope and choices.
The possibilities of what we can achieve together are limitless.
Let's continue to work together to ensure a brighter tomorrow for all of us.
Enjoy honey sesame chicken breast at Panda Express. Be the sweetness. Be the freshness. Be the crispy tender sesame seed perfection. That's how you find your sweet spot. Have it delivered from Panda Express today.
Micronesia Mall.
KUAM News, winner of the 2020 Regional Edward R. Murrow Award for Excellence in Social Media.
Welcome back. The governor signed a new law to authorize the refunding of certain bonds that will help the hard-hit airport cover its operating costs. Senators were called into special session last week to act on the measure, which GIAA says will provide millions of dollars in short-term debt service relief. GIAA and GITA officials testified that other major airports in the U.S. have done similar refunding. They acknowledged that the savings taken now could cost the airport more in interest down the road. Airports have been struggling to make ends meet in the midst of the global collapse of the travel industry. It will be the second time in as many years that the Guam airport will refinance its bonds. With the new year, the governor has announced a reshuffling of her cabinet and some new additions. Here's a rundown of the new appointees.
Sarah Thomas Nedadog was named Executive Director for the Office of Homelessness Assistance and Poverty Prevention. She's a former Executive Director of Sanctuary and is the current chair of the Democratic Party. DOA Deputy Director Edith Pangilinan was named President of the Guam Housing Corporation, replacing Alice Tyron, who moves to Adelup as Deputy Chief of Staff. Revenue Tax Deputy Director Michelle Santos is now the new Banking and Insurance Commissioner. She'll be replaced as deputy by Frank Leon Guerrero, a former U.S. District Court Marshal, Chief Marshal at the Guam Judiciary, and Legislative Budget Analyst. David Cruz has been named Administrator of the newly established Guam Recovery Office. Cruz will be responsible for working with FEMA on emergency and disaster relief. Homeland Security Advisor Tim Uggan is the new Director of the Guam Veterans Affairs Office, replacing Fred Bordallo. A replacement for Uggan at OHS was not announced. And finally, Crystal Paco San Agustin was officially named as the Governor's Communications Director. She previously served as Press Secretary. Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Nestor Lecanto.
A fight that's been occurring much longer than COVID is Guam's war on drugs. According to Guam Police Department Chief Stephen Ignacio, a recent arrest led to an alarming amount of accomplices picked up for not just hindering apprehension, but also on possession and use of guns and drugs.
I think that was a kind of an awakening call for the Guam Police Department.
Several individuals had a hand in hiding murder defendant 25-year-old Ronat Chutaro. Chutaro was the prime suspect wanted by GPD for questioning for the December 8th fatal stabbing of Arthur Wakuk. And the search for Chutaro led to much more. As Police Chief Stephen Ignacio says, it was a wake-up call.
I think it was quite a surprise, an eye-opener, to see how far into their community ICE has infiltrated crystal methamphetamine. It's in the community now. It's in their community now, and it is, at least for this group, which was a sizable group of young male adults or young adults. We saw that it permeated into that group.
Dealing with the Chukis community, mainly the young adults, Chief Ignacio says they are now allegedly part of the drug use, possession, and possibly distribution community. GPD is further investigating the case and plans to address the issue with FSM Consulate Teresa Philippin and reach out to church leaders and elders.
Because, they still have a very strong elder system in place. And so I'd like to, enlighten them on what our findings were so that maybe we can work together to kind of curb, if not stop, what's infiltrated their community.
A handful of young adults between the ages of 24 to 29 years old were arrested in connection to Chutaro's death investigation. Ignacio says all arrests have been made in Chutaro's case. However, drug investigations continue to move forward. Guam Police Department Chief Stephen Ignacio says the illegal fireworks that occurred on New Year's Eve in Agate are currently under investigation. Ignacio says he saw the videos and images circulating social media of the celebratory fireworks. As we reported this year, both the distribution and possession of fireworks was prohibited, and violators face monetary fines and court hearings. If it is a 1.3 category firework or Class B special firework, then offenders will be turned over to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Fireworks, and Explosives. Ignacio adds that GPD is in communication with the AFT regarding the matter. And Guam Fire Department informs KUAM no permits were issued. And it's time for our weekly Fanatic Zoom Zone segment where Dave Delgado catches up with local NFL fans.
Dave Delgado here with this week's Fanatic Zoom Zone. My man, Justin Lamarana, representing the Titans. Tell us when the love for your team first started.
When I was about 5 or 6, my cousin and I, we used to play NFL game day, and he always chose the Eagles, and I always chose the Titans. I was always a big Steve McNair and Eddie George fan.
Game day traditions?
So I have about 3 different jerseys that I cycle through. If we win a game, I wear the same jersey until we lose, and then I'll change to another one. I always wear my hat because it helps me feel like a fan. And then no matter what, if it's water or coffee, it's 3-4 in the morning for us, so I always got to drink from the mug.
Which team you look forward to facing every season?
If we're challenging the Chargers or the Ravens, my buddies and I normally have a loser has to buy lunch. But if we aren't challenging them, then definitely any of my division teams.
Top 2 all-time favorite players?
Javon Curse and Steve McNair.
Thank you, Dave. And coming up, we take a look at this week's weather forecast with our friends over at the National Weather Service. You're watching KUAM.
Your community calendar is brought to you by Taco Bell. Whether it's your first meal or your fourth meal, we've got you covered. Taco Bell, live Más.
For all those going out each day, doing what they can to hold us all together, we're here to help those helping us all by keeping our lights on.
It takes all of us to protect Guam. Join the Guam Visitors Bureau in our social media campaign series aimed to protect our island and each other in this COVID-19 era. Participate in the Protect Guam movement by wearing your mask, showcasing Guam's heroes, staying active, and downloading the Guam COVID Alert app. Post and share your content with us. Use the hashtag ProtectGuam, and you could win $100. It's that simple. Check out visitguam.com for details. Let's reclaim our lives, our economy, and our tourism industry.
COVID has made this a very challenging time for everyone. You are not alone. We are here for you in all walks of life. We are Mangai Ham, a project of Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center.
So long, nacho fries.
Whenever Taco Bell takes them off the menu, he can't escape the cravings. Nacho fries.
Escape your cravings with our nacho fries box. Run to Taco Bell.
Let's take a look at this week's weather forecast. Here's Landon Aidlet from the National Weather Service.
All of our forecast points across Micronesia, the Marshall Islands, and Palau are under a small craft advisory for strong winds and hazardous seas. And to put it in perspective, that's roughly the continental U.S. Our area of responsibility goes from Palau all the way to Marshall Islands, and inclusive of the Mariana Islands. Now, all of our main islands, they are dealing with hazardous seas. So it's a very large area across the Western Pacific dealing with these strong winds and large seas. So more specifically, what we're dealing with is that remaining residual hazardous surf along north and west facing reefs because of that large long period north swell. That's what we were dealing with a couple of days ago when that cold front zipped off north of us, passing off of Japan and China. That stayed well into the North Pacific, but those large swell emanating from the strong winds well to our north, they reached our shores and brought those hazardous surf conditions to the island. And I know you mentioned earlier a number of rescues off of Tuman Bay, a number of paddle boarders and kayakers. Mm-hmm. That's the tricky situation because the weather outside is great. It's beautiful weather. The winds weren't that bad over the weekend, but we had these large swell coming in, these long period swell. They're beautiful to look at, very well organized with the long period swell. And people might not realize the danger with those strong currents that look just below the water surface. And that's what probably caught people off guard in Tuman Bay and other locations around the island. So when we have these surf advisories out for west and north reefs, this is the west facing reefs, that's inclusive of Tingisan, all the way up to western Retidian beaches, off of Oka Point, Arodi Point, and then on down southward towards Agate, Sela Bay, Seti Bay, and Umatic, and then on down towards Marito. The north-facing reefs are inclusive of Retidian. That's one of the most dangerous areas where they had their beaches closed through the weekend because of that hazardous surf and the strong currents up there. Also Tingisan, Tuman Bay, all the way around to Hilton, Ipao, Pacific Star, Fiesta Beaches, and then along Agana Bay, and then all the way towards Apple Harbor. So these were the hot zones over the weekend. We're going to see the surf gradually diminish through the day. The current forecast does have surf advisories decreasing below hazardous levels around 8 o'clock this morning. I suspect the west surf advisory, that should be able to drop as planned, but I think the north reefs could still remain hazardous today because of that direction of those large swell. It's swept around from the northwest now to the north-northeast. So the west is a little bit better protected and lesser surf, but the north will still be facing with a lot of stuff. This is at surf. There's large swell that came in over Friday night and Saturday. That came way in and very large, up to about 13 feet maximum swell height. It's been leveling out and it's going to continue to taper, but our sea conditions of around 8 to 10 foot combined seas, that will persist another couple days. So seas will remain hazardous, but the surf will gradually diminish.
Coming up, your birthday shout outs from the Cold Stone Creamery Birthday Club. Keep it here.
With triple cheese and bacon or chili cheese, try my sauced and loaded fries. It's pretty delicious.
For the different beats of your life, we're here to keep you connected the way you want it. Plans made for you, by you. Build your own bundle with Link. Select the internet, entertainment, mobile, and home phone plans that fit your lifestyle. Pay for what you want, not for what you don't. Build your own bundle and save with Link.
And before we close out the news tonight, our latest round of birthday shoutouts from the Cold Stone Creamery Birthday Club.
Happy birthday on the first Monday of the year 2021 to our January 4th babies, led off by Ramon Bernardo, who celebrates birthday number 15 today. May the good Lord continue to bless you, Ramon, and may your special day be filled with lots of love and happiness. Love your entire family. And belated birthday love going out to Elaine and Rick Mindiola, born on New Year's Day. To our daughter Elaine and son Rick, may the Lord bless you and keep you both safe through the new year. With love, your family. Also born on January the 1st, Susie Arceo. Happy New Year and happy 89th birthday. We love you, Mom and Nana. From Juanita, Andrew, and Millie, and your grandchildren, children, and great-grandchildren, all around the globe. Born on January the 3rd is Liana Santos, and your family is sending all your love, and they say smile because you still have teeth. New year, new you. Sil Munya, also born on the 3rd. Happy birthday from your loving husband, daughters, sons-in-law, and grandkids. They all say enjoy your special day. And Veronica Patel, born on the 3rd. Happy birthday, Nana, to our matriarch and our strength from the entire family. And also, happy heavenly anniversary to our grandpa and father, Jose Garrido, whom we miss and love very much.
Remember, you can be part of the Cold Stone Creamery Birthday Club by registering online on KUAM.com. Please make sure to include with your photo your name and birthday. That's going to do it for us here on Prime Time. Thank you for watching. Have a good night and be safe.